Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of the re-education of Molly Singer? Released on March 3, 2023, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. On March 3, 2023, the re-education of Molly Singer hit theaters with a quiet yet powerful bang, leaving viewers spellbound and hungry for more. Directed by Grace Lee, this film immediately became one of the most talked-about releases of the year, captivating audiences with its blend of humor, heart, and raw, unfiltered emotion. With an ensemble cast led by Zoe Deutsch, the film invites viewers into the world of Molly Singer, a young woman who seems to have it all, at least on the surface. But as the film unravels, so does Molly's perfect facade, exposing the complexities of modern life, self-discovery, and the pressures of expectations. It's a film that speaks to the millennial generation, while also reaching across age and experience to speak to anyone who's ever had to stop, reevaluate, and start again. What makes the re-education of Molly Singer stand out isn't just its witty dialogue or its insightful commentary on navigating adulthood. It's the way the film walks that fine line between being deeply personal and universally relatable. It speaks to the chaos of personal reinvention in a world that demands constant adaptation. It tackles themes of identity, love, career, and the constant battle between societal expectations and personal desires, all while delivering a comedic tone that provides just enough lightness to keep the emotional weight from becoming too overwhelming. At first glance, the re-education of Molly Singer may seem like yet another millennial coming-of-age story, a genre that's had its fair share of hits and misses in recent years. However, as you delve deeper into the narrative, it quickly becomes clear that this is not your average film about figuring out who you are. The story goes beyond simple self-discovery. It's about the overwhelming, often painful process of deconstructing the life you've built, piece by piece, only to realize that maybe everything you've been working toward isn't really what you want after all. Zoe Deutsch, in the role of Molly, delivers a career-defining performance, capturing the essence of someone on the verge of a breakdown and breakthrough simultaneously. From the moment she steps onto the screen, Molly is both instantly relatable and intriguingly complex. She's the type of character we all recognize. Young, slightly lost, trying to navigate her way through the noise of modern life. But as her world begins to unravel, we see her evolve into something much more, revealing layers of vulnerability and strength that leave a lasting impact. Deutsch's performance doesn't just carry the film, it elevates it to an entirely new level, ensuring that every emotional beat lands with the perfect amount of intensity. Her chemistry with the supporting cast also shines through, especially in her interactions with John C. McGinley's character, Ethan, a gruff yet surprisingly insightful mentor who helps her begin to pick up the pieces of her fragmented life. The plot itself is deceptively simple at first. Molly, an up-and-coming career woman in her late 20s, is suddenly forced to confront the truth about her life after an unexpected event throws her world into chaos. As she tries to make sense of what has happened, she embarks on a journey of personal re-education, one that forces her to face not just the world around her, but her own choices, regrets, and desires. This process of self-discovery leads her to reconsider her relationships, her career, and, most importantly, the way she's been living her life. What makes the plot truly fascinating are the unexpected twists and emotional turns that emerge as the film progresses. Without giving too much away, let's just say that the re-education of Molly Singer has a way of keeping the audience on their toes, subverting expectations at every turn. The film plays with themes of reinvention, guilt, and the idea that sometimes the road to personal growth isn't paved with easy answers or clear-cut moments of revelation. Instead, it's a messy, unpredictable process that forces Molly, and by extension, the viewer, to confront some uncomfortable truths. In doing so, it creates a raw, immersive experience that leaves you questioning your own path in life. The supporting characters in the film, while not as heavily featured as Molly herself, play critical roles in her re-education. Andrea Riseborough's performance as Jane, Molly's best friend and a fellow lost soul, navigating adulthood, brings an incredible layer of complexity to the story. Jane is both a source of comfort and a reminder to Molly that no one really has it all figured out. Her character is a great contrast to Molly's, serving as a mirror to her journey of self-discovery. Meanwhile, McGinley's Ethan provides the wisdom and guidance that Molly desperately needs, though it's not always delivered in the way one might expect. His role is less about offering solutions and more about helping Molly ask the right questions. Sometimes through tough love, other times through quiet reflection. This dynamic trio creates a nuanced, emotionally satisfying narrative, one that feels incredibly real and grounded, even when the story ventures into the surreal. The visual style of the re-education of Molly Singer is as layered as its characters. From the very beginning, the film uses color and light to convey the inner emotional landscape of its characters. The transitions between bright, lively moments and somber, introspective sequences serve as a mirror to the way Molly's world shifts from the external to the internal. There's a dreamlike quality to certain sequences that heighten the emotional stakes, drawing the audience further into the character's psyche. The cinematography is intentional, offering a sense of intimacy that allows the viewer to feel as though they are stepping directly into Molly's shoes, experiencing her highs and lows firsthand. The film's soundtrack is another key component that enhances its emotional depth. Carefully curated to reflect the evolving emotional beats of the story, the music punctuates key moments without ever feeling intrusive. From nostalgic, indie pop tracks that evoke a sense of youthful idealism to haunting ballads that underscore the more somber moments of reflection, the soundtrack perfectly complements the tone of the film. It's the kind of soundtrack that stays with you long after the credits roll, evoking the very essence of the story even in the quietest moments. What truly sets the re-education of Molly Singer apart, however, is its cultural resonance. This isn't just a film about one woman's journey. It's a film that taps into a much larger conversation about self-identity in the modern world. With the rise of social media, a 24/7 news cycle, and the pressures of societal expectations, many people, especially young adults, find themselves struggling to reconcile who they are with who the world expects them to be. The movie becomes more than just a personal journey for Molly. It's a reflection of the ways in which we all struggle to find authenticity in a world that constantly tells us who we should be. It's this universal struggle that has made the re-education of Molly Singer a cultural touchstone, resonating deeply with audiences who see a part of themselves in Molly's quest for meaning. This is a film that challenges the way we think about personal growth. It's not about finding yourself in the sense of discovering a perfect, packaged version of who you're supposed to be. Instead, it's about understanding that growth is a constant, messy, often painful process that never truly ends. It's about embracing change, questioning the life you've built, and being willing to let go of what no longer serves you, even if that means letting go of some of your most cherished beliefs. It's a story of liberation, not from the world around you, but from the expectations you place on yourself. So, why should viewers dive deeper into the re-education of Molly Singer? Because, beyond the expertly crafted plot, the unforgettable performances, and the stunning visuals, it's a film that forces us to look inward. It asks us to reflect on our own lives, our own choices, and the stories we've been telling ourselves about who we are. It's a reminder that personal re-education is not something that happens in an instant. It's a lifelong journey, one that requires patience, vulnerability, and the courage to face whatever comes next. If you're looking for a movie that offers more than just entertainment, one that will linger in your thoughts long after the screen fades to black, the re-education of Molly Singer is an exploration worth taking. The moment the re-education of Molly Singer begins, the screen is filled with vibrant city lights, fast-paced scenes of modern life, and the hum of a world that never seems to stop. It's a perfect reflection of Molly Singer's life, fast, chaotic, and seemingly filled with endless possibilities. As the opening credits roll, the audience is quickly introduced to Molly, played by Zoe Deutsch, a young woman who has it all. On the surface, she's successful, driven, and effortlessly charming. But the cracks beneath the shiny exterior start to show almost immediately, and that's when we begin our journey into Molly's complicated, often messy world. Molly is a rising star in her career, an ambitious woman working in digital marketing. Her job demands long hours, creativity, and an ability to keep up with the latest trends. And for a while, it seems like she's got it all under control. But there's a distinct sense of unease in the way she interacts with her colleagues. Her conversations are surface level, filled with quick laughs and forced smiles, as though she's trying desperately to keep up the appearance of being in control. One of the first things we learn about Molly is that her success feels hollow, like she's been putting all her energy into something that doesn't quite fulfill her. Her apartment, sleek and stylish, is the physical embodiment of this beautiful but impersonal. It's a space that reflects her outward appearance but doesn't reveal who she truly is beneath it. Early on, we see Molly at a work event, where her perfection begins to crack. While she's busy giving a pitch for an ad campaign, it's clear she's not fully invested in what she's saying. Her eyes wander, her words lose their edge, and it's almost as if she's just going through the motions. She's distracted, a little exhausted, and seems to be running on autopilot. Enter Ethan, a gruff, older colleague played by John C. McGinley, who represents a different side of professional life. Ethan has been in the game for years, and while he's still working, there's a quiet resignation in his approach to life and work. He's the kind of person who's seen it all and no longer has the patience for the distractions that Molly often gets caught up in. Ethan sees right through Molly's polished exterior and quietly challenges her to think deeper about what she's really doing with her life. The contrast between Molly's high energy, constantly on-the-go attitude and Ethan's laid-back, almost detached demeanor sets up an interesting dynamic. Their early interactions are tense, full of sharp banter and unspoken tension. Ethan isn't the kind of mentor Molly expects, but he's exactly the one she needs. It's this relationship that begins to shape the early moments of the film, hinting at the lessons Molly has yet to learn about herself and the world around her. However, it isn't until the pivotal moment in the film's first half that the stakes are raised, setting everything into motion. Molly's life, already hanging by a thread, takes a sharp turn when she receives devastating news. She's being laid off from her job. The news hits her like a ton of bricks, and in a way, it's the first time we see her fully vulnerable. The tension that's been building throughout the movie peaks here. Her life has been centered around this career, and without it, she feels lost. She's faced with a reality she's never really had to consider. What happens when everything you've built your identity around crumbles? But this news doesn't just shake Molly's professional life. It unravels her personal life as well. She returns to her apartment, where her emotions come crashing down. Alone in her sleek, empty space, Molly has a moment of raw vulnerability that's difficult to watch. The apartment, once a symbol of her success, now feels like a cage. She stands in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. This is the moment that sets the tone for the rest of the film, the realization that her outward success has never aligned with her inner happiness. She's been so focused on achieving the next big thing that she's forgotten to ask herself if it's even what she wants. This emotional unraveling is only the beginning. As the first half of the film progresses, we are introduced to a series of key characters who will influence Molly's path forward. Jane, played by Andrea Riseborough, is Molly's best friend, the kind of person who always has Molly's back but also isn't afraid to tell her when she's being too hard on herself. Jane is the more grounded of the two, though she's clearly struggling with her own version of adulthood. She's the kind of friend who's always there for late-night talks or offering unsolicited advice. But at the same time, she's just as uncertain about her own life choices. Jane's advice to Molly is simple yet profound. You need to find out who you are, not who you're supposed to be. In many ways, Jane represents the voice of reason, the friend who can see through the layers of self-deception that Molly has built. Yet, even with Jane's comforting presence, Molly can't escape the feeling that something is missing from her life. She's still lost, searching for purpose in a world that feels increasingly superficial. It's here that the film begins to introduce a more introspective tone, drawing us into Molly's personal journey of re-education. The sense of isolation grows as Molly questions everything: her career, her relationships, and even her own sense of identity. Molly's relationship with her parents also comes under scrutiny. During a tense dinner scene, Molly's parents express their concern over her job situation, but their concern feels almost patronizing. It's clear that they see her as a success, a young woman with the world at her feet. But to Molly, their expectations are just another weight on her shoulders. The more they push for her to get back on track, the more she feels like she's failing them and herself. These interactions with her parents only deepen Molly's sense of alienation. They want her to conform to a version of success that she no longer believes in, making it clear that they don't understand the pressure she's under. In these moments, we see Molly at a crossroads, torn between the version of herself that others want her to be and the person she's beginning to realize she wants to become. As the first half of the movie unfolds, we witness pivotal moments that foreshadow the twists ahead. One of the most significant moments comes when Molly reluctantly accepts a coffee invitation from Ethan. Their conversation is oddly disarming. Ethan doesn't offer her any platitudes about finding a new job or getting back in the game. Instead, he talks about life as an ongoing experiment, a series of trials and errors that don't always have clear answers. Ethan becomes an unexpected guide in Molly's life, offering an alternative perspective to her usual go-getter mentality. He pushes her to think beyond the need for external validation, to explore what truly drives her. But even with his guidance, Molly struggles to let go of her need for control. She's been so focused on meeting the expectations of others that she's forgotten how to listen to her own voice. Molly's interactions with her colleagues also take on a new meaning. She begins to see through the veneer of office politics and career ambitions that once seemed so important. One scene, in which Molly attends a team meeting filled with empty corporate jargon and backhanded compliments, serves as a turning point for her. As she watches her colleagues bicker over trivial matters, it's as if she's seeing the absurdity of it all for the first time. The world she's been a part of suddenly feels shallow, and it becomes clear that her decision to leave this environment is inevitable. There's an underlying sense of unease throughout the first half of the film, building tension in every interaction and every decision that Molly makes. The uncertainty of her career is mirrored by her internal confusion, as she starts to realize that the life she's been building may not actually be the one she wants. The first half of the re-education of Molly Singer is packed with emotional highs and lows, moments of deep introspection, and an ever-growing sense of foreboding. Every character she encounters, from the disillusioned Ethan to the well-meaning but misguided advice of her parents, serves as a mirror to Molly's journey, pushing her to confront the truth about who she is and who she's been pretending to be. But as the story unfolds, it's clear that Molly is only beginning to scratch the surface of her transformation. The twists that come in the second half of the movie will test everything she's learned so far, challenging her to go deeper into the re-education process. The first half has set the stage, planted the seeds of doubt, and introduced the key players who will help or hinder Molly as she embarks on the next phase of her journey. And though the story may seem like it's only just begun, the real transformation is yet to come. As the second half of the re-education of Molly Singer begins, the quiet tension that has been building in the first half becomes explosive. Molly, after the devastating blow of losing her job, is standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure of what comes next. She's already begun to question her career, her relationships, and even her sense of self, but it's not until this moment, where her carefully constructed life unravels, that the true depth of her internal transformation becomes clear. The second half is where we see Molly break free from the confines of who she's been and begin the uncomfortable, but necessary process of reinvention. The first major turning point comes when Molly decides, in an act of defiance and curiosity, to take a break from the structured, rigid life she's been living. She leaves her apartment, the one that was once her sanctuary, and embarks on a journey of self-exploration. She moves out of the sterile, empty space she's been hiding in and into a temporary, more modest living arrangement, an old friend's couch in a much more laid-back, creative part of town. It's a symbolic shift. She's no longer clinging to the version of herself that was defined by high-end jobs and social media validation. This act of surrender is the beginning of a new chapter, one that promises to strip away the layers she's built over the years. Molly's first days in her new life are disorienting. She spends her time drifting between meetings with old colleagues who have moved on without her, catching up with people she hasn't seen in ages, and experiencing a deep sense of isolation. There's a palpable sadness in the way she moves through these spaces. She's part of these worlds, but not really a part of them anymore. Every conversation feels like a reminder of how much she's changed, even if no one else seems to notice. This sense of alienation is a running theme in the second half, amplifying her emotional journey. But as she finds herself surrounded by people who continue on with their lives as if nothing has shifted, Molly is forced to confront just how much she's been holding on to an image of success that wasn't truly hers. The next major development comes when Molly has a chance meeting with Ethan again. This time, instead of offering guidance from the safety of their corporate work environment, Ethan takes Molly out to a dive bar, a place far removed from the structured world she's familiar with. The shift in location is intentional. The dive bar represents a freedom Molly hasn't known before, a space that doesn't demand she be anyone other than herself. Here, the conversation between Molly and Ethan is raw, unguarded, and profoundly honest. Ethan finally pushes Molly to look beyond her fear of failure and to embrace the idea that her life doesn't have to follow a predictable trajectory. Ethan's words carry more weight in this moment, and for the first time in the film, Molly seems to truly absorb what he's saying. However, it's not just Ethan's guidance that impacts Molly's journey. Her interactions with Jane also take on a new dynamic. In a pivotal scene, Jane, Molly's best friend, expresses a deep concern for Molly's emotional well-being. Jane has always been the friend who tries to help, but in this moment, she reveals a vulnerability of her own. The conversation becomes a mirror. Jane admits that she, too, is struggling to find meaning in her life. This admission catches Molly off guard, and it sets off a moment of reflection that ultimately deepens their friendship. The vulnerability Jane shows forces Molly to realize that self-doubt isn't something she has to face alone. The two friends, once so sure of their paths, now see the cracks in each other's lives, and together, they begin to redefine what success looks like. The emotional heart of the second half comes when Molly receives an unexpected invitation to a creative retreat. It's a completely different world from her marketing job, a chance to explore her creativity, her passions, and her interests outside the corporate realm. The retreat is an escape, a place for her to breathe and, more importantly, to finally be herself. As she walks through the doors of this new space, Molly feels a rush of freedom that she hasn't felt in years. The retreat is filled with people from all walks of life, each seeking to rediscover something about themselves. It's here that Molly has the chance to stop pretending, to let go of her carefully curated persona and embrace a raw version of herself. At the retreat, Molly meets a group of people who are completely different from anyone she's ever known. There's no pressure to be perfect, no need to impress anyone. It's a community that encourages exploration, creativity, and most of all, authenticity. She becomes close to a woman named Leah, an artist whose life is all about embracing vulnerability and artistic expression. Leah, unlike the people Molly is used to, lives in complete opposition to the world she's left behind. She's not concerned with a perfect career or the appearance of success. She's simply living in the moment, chasing what makes her feel alive. It's Leah who opens Molly's eyes to the possibility of a new life. Molly begins to explore her own interests, using the time at the retreat to try things she's never had the courage to before. Painting, photography, writing. She throws herself into these creative pursuits without worrying about the outcome. It's a complete departure from the high-stakes world of digital marketing, but for Molly, it's a breath of fresh air. Yet, as much as Molly enjoys her time at the retreat, she cannot completely escape the reality of her previous life. The lure of success, of validation, continues to follow her. During a critical moment in the retreat, Molly is asked to present one of her projects in front of the group, a showcase of her creative work. The presentation becomes a pivotal moment of self-doubt. The old part of her, the Molly who once lived for external validation and the approval of others, returns briefly, and she almost pulls away from the opportunity, fearing she'll be judged. But in an emotional breakthrough, Molly decides to go for it. She shows her work to the group, revealing pieces of herself she's never shared with anyone. The room is silent at first, but then, to her surprise, the group responds with warmth and encouragement. It's the first time Molly realizes that her worth isn't tied to what she's accomplished in a corporate setting or the expectations placed on her by the outside world. The true validation she's been seeking has been inside her all along. This breakthrough sets in motion the final act of the film. As the retreat comes to a close, Molly returns to her life in the city. Changed, but not quite the person she thought she would be. She doesn't have all the answers, and she's not entirely sure what the future holds. But she's finally made peace with the idea that she doesn't need to have it all figured out. There's no perfect ending here, no neat resolution to all of Molly's struggles. Instead, we see her begin to rebuild her life from a place of honesty and self-acceptance. She reaches out to people she's neglected, including her family, and begins the process of repairing her relationships. She also accepts the fact that her career may never look like the one she envisioned. She's open to new opportunities, ones that align with her passions and values. The final scene of the film is a quiet yet powerful one. Molly is back in her apartment, but this time it's different. The space is no longer sterile and impersonal. It's filled with things that reflect who she truly is. There's a sense of warmth and authenticity that was missing before. The camera lingers on her face as she stands by the window, looking out at the world with a new sense of purpose. For the first time in the entire film, she seems at peace. The world outside is still chaotic, but Molly no longer feels the need to control it. She's accepted the messiness of her life, and in doing so, she's finally found the freedom she's been searching for. As the credits roll, it's clear that Molly's journey is far from over. She's not the same person she was at the beginning of the film, but she's still evolving. Her re-education is an ongoing process, and the story of her self-discovery is just one chapter in a much larger journey. But in this moment, in the final shot, we see a woman who has learned to embrace herself, flaws and all. And in doing so, she's opened the door to a new, more authentic version of her life. In the re-education of Molly Singer, the journey of self-discovery is propelled by the dynamic transformations of its central characters. The story, rich with personal growth and emotional awakening, hinges on the ever-evolving nature of its protagonist, Molly Singer. At its core, the film is not only a deep exploration of one woman's internal conflict, but also a reflection of how the people around her influence the path she ultimately chooses to take. The performances in the film are key to making this exploration compelling, with the nuances of each character contributing to a broader narrative about identity, success, and personal reinvention. Molly Singer, portrayed with both vulnerability and strength by Zoe Deutsch, is a woman who begins the story entrenched in a superficial version of success. At the start of the film, Molly's life is defined by her position in a high-powered digital marketing firm, where she's seen as an ambitious, driven young professional. Yet beneath her polished exterior lies an overwhelming pressure to conform to the expectations of the corporate world and society. Her motivations at the outset are clear. She wants to be seen as successful, to prove herself not only to her peers but also to her family, who constantly reinforce the notion that success equates to climbing the corporate ladder. Molly's life is meticulously curated, filled with social media highlights and professional accolades, but it becomes clear early on that these accomplishments are not fulfilling her. Deutsch's performance is key to making Molly's internal conflict relatable and engaging. At the beginning of the film, Molly's sharp, quick-witted persona is designed to both charm and distance those around her. She is someone who wears her success on her sleeve, carefully managing her image and her ambitions. Deutsch skillfully conveys this defensive exterior, showing Molly as someone who is constantly performing in her professional and personal life. Her interactions are tinged with an undercurrent of tension. Molly is ever aware of the image she projects. This tension escalates when she loses her job at the firm, a blow that strikes at the very heart of her self-identity. Molly's reaction to this setback, her desire to find something new, something that will fulfill her, becomes the emotional backbone of the film. As the story progresses, Molly's journey is one of reckoning with her past self and grappling with the uncomfortable reality of who she has been. With Deutsch's portrayal, we see a shift in Molly that isn't sudden but gradual, built on small, emotionally charged moments. In her search for meaning, she begins to let go of her need for external validation, something Deutsch conveys with subtlety, letting Molly's anxiety transform into small gestures of defiance and personal growth. It's in these quieter moments that Deutsch's performance stands out, with every glance, every word, and every uncomfortable silence revealing the layers of Molly's self-doubt and eventual acceptance. The arc of Molly is beautifully drawn. She starts as someone who measures her worth through achievements and others' approval, only to ultimately find strength in accepting her own imperfection and vulnerability. While Molly's journey is at the center of the narrative, it is the supporting characters who help shape her transformation and provide contrasting viewpoints on what it means to lead a fulfilled life. The most significant of these characters is Ethan, played by John C. McGinley. Ethan serves as both a foil and a guide for Molly. He is the older, more experienced figure who has long given up on the race for corporate success, preferring instead to focus on the simpler aspects of life. His relationship with Molly begins with tension, as Molly is initially dismissive of his more laid-back approach to life. Ethan is unbothered by the corporate world and content with a slower, quieter existence, a way of life that seems alien to Molly. However, as their connection deepens, Ethan becomes an unexpected mentor for Molly. His motivations aren't immediately clear. He's not pushing Molly toward any particular career or lifestyle, but rather urging her to embrace a more authentic version of herself. Ethan encourages her to take a step back, to stop performing for others and to discover what she really wants from life, free of judgment. McGinley's portrayal of Ethan is one of quiet wisdom, with a dry wit that feels both disarming and comforting. Ethan is not preachy or overbearing, but rather a subtle force of change. His wisdom emerges from the way he lives his life, unapologetically detached from the pressures that have consumed Molly. In their time together, Ethan shares bits of his own life story, which helps Molly see that there are different ways to define success. Ethan's lack of ambition, in Molly's eyes, is initially something to be pitied, but over time, it becomes clear that his lack of desire for validation is a form of freedom. It is through Ethan's nonchalant guidance that Molly begins to question her own values, pushing her to reevaluate what truly makes her happy and fulfilled. Then there is Jane, played by Andrea Riseborough, Molly's best friend, who serves as a vital emotional anchor throughout the story. Jane's character offers a more grounded perspective than Molly's, and her own struggles with career and personal life provide a mirror for Molly's emotional evolution. Jane is a woman who is at once relatable and imperfect, balancing the need for success with the reality of feeling lost in life. Where Molly is trying to keep up appearances, Jane is more honest with herself. She's struggling, but she is not ashamed of it. This honesty offers Molly the safe space to explore her own vulnerabilities. Throughout the film, Jane provides a shoulder to lean on, but also challenges Molly when she becomes too wrapped up in the need for external validation. She is the first person who notices Molly's increasing dissatisfaction with her life and the first to encourage her to take a step back and reevaluate. Riseborough's performance is understated yet powerful, capturing Jane's quiet strength and subtle longing. Jane is often the one who pushes Molly out of her comfort zone, urging her to take risks and face the uncomfortable realities of her life. But Jane's character arc is equally significant, as she comes to realize that she, too, needs to confront her own insecurities and self-doubt. In this way, Jane's transformation parallels Molly's, though the two characters experience their growth in different ways. Jane's growth is more about acceptance, learning to live with the messiness of life, while Molly's journey is about letting go of the need to control and embracing authenticity. The film's retreat setting introduces additional characters who further expand Molly's emotional journey. One of the most important is Leah, played with an exuberant energy by the supporting actress. Leah is an artist whose free-spirited nature provides Molly with an entirely new lens through which to view the world. Leah's character embodies everything Molly is not. She is unbound by the constraints of societal expectations and embraces her passions without concern for outside judgment. Through Leah, Molly begins to see what it means to truly live for oneself, to create for the joy of creation rather than for approval or accolades. Leah's role in the narrative is to show Molly the possibility of a life not governed by the pursuit of status or perfection. She becomes both a friend and an inspiration to Molly, urging her to stop hiding behind her professional identity and start exploring her own creative potential. Leah's presence serves as a catalyst for Molly's deeper self-exploration, pushing her toward new creative outlets such as painting and writing. Through Leah, Molly starts to realize that she doesn't have to fit into the box she's built for herself. Leah's carefree approach to life challenges everything Molly once believed about success and accomplishment. As Molly allows herself to be influenced by Leah's example, her transformation becomes more pronounced, ultimately leading her to accept the messy, imperfect aspects of herself and her life. Finally, there is the ever-present figure of Molly's mother, whose character hovers like a looming force over Molly's journey. Her mother represents the voice of tradition and expectation, constantly pushing Molly toward a more conventional and financially successful path. While her mother's intentions are good, her inability to understand Molly's need for creative and personal fulfillment only deepens the disconnect between them. Molly's relationship with her mother is one of tension, as she struggles to break free from the pressures of living up to her family's image of success. In many ways, Molly's mother serves as a reminder of the old life she's trying to escape, a constant presence that forces Molly to confront her insecurities and her need for approval. Throughout the film, the supporting characters, while not as dominant in terms of screen time, are essential to Molly's growth. Each one offers a different perspective on what it means to live authentically, and each one serves as a mirror through which Molly sees herself. From Ethan's quiet wisdom to Jane's raw honesty and Leah's unrestrained passion, these characters shape Molly's emotional arc, guiding her through moments of doubt and offering her the tools she needs to build a new, more genuine version of herself. Ultimately, the film is a reflection of how our relationships, our struggles, and our willingness to embrace change shape who we are. The performances in the re-education of Molly Singer elevate this narrative, turning what could have been a straightforward story of personal growth into an emotional exploration of identity, belonging, and acceptance. Each character, from Molly herself to the supporting players, plays an integral role in this journey, offering both contrast and support as they push the protagonist to her emotional and personal breakthrough. Through their motivations, transformations, and arcs, the characters in the re-education of Molly Singer remind us that the process of self-discovery is rarely linear, but is always deeply influenced by the people we encounter along the way. The re-education of Molly Singer offers a layer of richness beneath its surface narrative, where every detail, no matter how small, plays a role in enhancing the film's themes and emotional resonance. From visual cues to subtle callbacks and cultural references, the film rewards viewers who pay close attention, offering hidden details and Easter eggs that enrich the viewing experience. These elements not only provide a deeper understanding of the story but also serve as a clever form of storytelling, adding texture and complexity to the characters' arcs and the world they inhabit. What follows is an exploration of some of the most intriguing hidden details in the film, each of which enriches the story in ways that might not be immediately obvious. At first glance, the plot of the re-education of Molly Singer appears to be a straightforward story of self-discovery and personal transformation. Molly's journey from an image-obsessed professional to someone more in touch with her true self seems clear-cut. However, the film is laced with visual metaphors and subtle references that hint at a much deeper layer of meaning, one that reflects the pressures of modern society, the conflict between appearance and reality, and the profound personal journey of self-actualization. For those paying attention, the world around Molly, from the places she visits to the people she interacts with, provides clues about her emotional state and the path she must take. One of the most prominent recurring motifs throughout the film is the presence of mirrors. Mirrors appear in many scenes, often framing Molly's reflection or acting as symbols of self-image. Early in the film, when Molly is still caught up in the high-speed rat race of corporate life, she is frequently shown interacting with mirrors, whether it's checking her appearance in a car window or adjusting her hair before a meeting. These moments of self-inspection reinforce Molly's obsession with how she is perceived by the outside world, an obsession that defines her identity. As her journey progresses and she begins to question the persona she has built, the use of mirrors shifts. They no longer reflect just her outward appearance but are subtly used to suggest Molly's internal conflict. In one particularly powerful scene, after she has a conversation with Ethan about what it means to live authentically, the camera lingers on Molly looking at herself in a cracked mirror, symbolizing her fractured sense of self. This moment foreshadows the emotional break she is about to undergo, a shift in which she no longer seeks external validation but looks inward for answers. Similarly, the film frequently uses visual contrasts between light and shadow to represent Molly's evolving sense of self. Early on, when Molly is still obsessed with success, she is often bathed in harsh, artificial lighting, emphasizing her role as a professional figure who is always on display. However, as she grows more comfortable with her vulnerability and begins to embrace her true self, the lighting softens. In key scenes, natural light floods the frame, symbolizing the clarity she gains as she sheds the false persona she's been holding on to. This use of light and shadow not only mirrors her emotional journey but also serves as a visual cue for viewers to track her development throughout the film. Beyond the visual metaphors, the re-education of Molly Singer also incorporates clever references to pop culture, often using them as a lens through which the characters view their lives. For instance, Molly's obsession with social media early on in the film is framed within the context of the modern digital age, where online personas often become a second life. One of the more humorous yet telling Easter eggs occurs when Molly, in a moment of frustration with her job loss, sarcastically references the idea of starting a blog or becoming an influencer, something that would be a natural fit for her given the growing trend in the digital world. This throwaway line acts as a nod to the rise of influencer culture, which plays a significant role in shaping the public's perception of success. It also foreshadows her eventual rejection of that lifestyle as she seeks a more authentic path. The idea of social media as a double-edged sword is subtly woven into the narrative, reinforcing the central theme that success, when defined by others, is often hollow. In another scene, when Molly attends the retreat that becomes a pivotal turning point in her transformation, the film makes a pointed reference to a self-help book that Ethan recommends to her. The book, which focuses on living a life of authenticity and self-acceptance, is a subtle nod to the many cultural movements centered around wellness and mindfulness that have gained popularity in recent years. The title of the book, which is never explicitly shown on screen, is actually a clever play on a famous 20th century work of philosophy, offering a wink to those who are familiar with the intellectual currents that question the pursuit of success and wealth. This book, with its blend of spiritual wisdom and practical advice, serves as a metaphor for the shift in Molly's worldview, as she begins to embrace a life less concerned with appearances and more rooted in genuine fulfillment. The retreat itself, a place of introspection and healing, is another location that is rich with hidden details. The setting, remote, serene, and far from the chaos of urban life, mirrors Molly's journey towards self-discovery, providing her the space to reflect on her choices and confront her deepest fears. The retreat also introduces a collection of eccentric characters, each of whom embodies different approaches to life that challenge Molly's understanding of success. Among these characters is a painter who, like Leah, challenges Molly's preconceived notions of success. The painter's art is not for sale, nor is it made for recognition. It's made for the sheer joy of creation. The painter's philosophy offers a stark contrast to Molly's previous understanding of what it means to succeed, an idea that is rooted in the external validation of others. In this way, the painter acts as a symbolic figure for the life Molly could have if she chooses to let go of her old ideals. Throughout the retreat, the camera lingers on small, seemingly inconspicuous details that underscore the importance of letting go. One of the most poignant moments is when Molly is asked to write a letter to her future self, a task that feels trivial to her at first. The letter, which she resists at first, becomes a symbolic moment of release. What's fascinating about this scene is that it mirrors a key moment from earlier in the film, where Molly had written an email to her boss, an act that symbolized her adherence to her corporate identity. By contrast, this letter is a symbolic act of self-reflection, signaling her first step toward understanding her true desires. The retreat also introduces another Easter egg that calls back to the film's central theme of image versus reality. In a quiet scene, one of the retreat's participants shares a story about the concept of the false self, a psychological term that refers to the persona we present to the world in order to gain acceptance. This concept, which echoes the book Ethan recommended earlier, is subtly woven into the retreat's teachings, acting as a mirror for Molly's internal struggle. The retreat, which is meant to be a place of healing, is a safe space where these abstract concepts are introduced, providing the audience with a more nuanced understanding of the film's themes. As the film nears its conclusion, the final sequence of scenes cleverly ties together many of the threads established earlier. One of the most emotionally resonant callbacks occurs when Molly is shown rediscovering a painting she did years ago, an artwork she had abandoned in the pursuit of a more practical career. The painting, which is a reflection of her artistic potential and the life she put aside, serves as a powerful metaphor for the self she left behind in favor of success. The final shot of the film lingers on this painting, now framed and displayed in her new apartment. It's not just a literal piece of art. It represents the new life Molly has begun to build for herself, one that is not defined by the approval of others, but by her own sense of fulfillment. In a final bit of subtle foreshadowing, the film ends with a quiet moment where Molly walks past a mirror, but this time, she does not stop to inspect her reflection. Instead, she moves past it with a newfound sense of ease. This moment, brief as it is, captures the essence of Molly's transformation. She no longer needs to constantly evaluate her worth through the lens of others. It is a powerful, understated conclusion that encapsulates the film's message about the importance of self-acceptance and the liberation that comes with letting go of the need for external validation. The re-education of Molly Singer is filled with layers of meaning, with every visual detail and subtle reference serving to enrich the story. From mirrors to lighting, book references to character-driven metaphors, the film rewards viewers who look beyond the surface. Each Easter egg, whether it's a nod to a famous philosophical concept or a visual metaphor for self-identity, is thoughtfully placed to enhance the emotional depth of the narrative. The film's beauty lies not just in its main story, but in the way it weaves these details into the fabric of its storytelling, offering a richer, more rewarding experience for those who take the time to explore its hidden depths. The journey behind the re-education of Molly Singer isn't just confined to its narrative or its stunning performances. Like most great films, its production is filled with unexpected twists, fascinating challenges, and creative choices that added layers of complexity to its final form. Behind the smooth execution of this deeply introspective tale lies a story of resourcefulness, overcoming obstacles, and a few surprising moments that will leave any film lover wide-eyed with curiosity. First, let's start with the challenges faced during the film's production. The screenplay's unique narrative, blending humor with emotional depth, was not the easiest to bring to life on the screen. Originally conceived as a small indie project, the film's budget was limited, forcing director Jordan Adams to get creative with resources. In one instance, the filming schedule was so tight that certain scenes had to be shot without a fully finished script. The team had to rely on improvisation and collaboration between the actors and crew. Zoe Deutsch, who played the titular character, Molly Singer, revealed in an interview that many of her most vulnerable moments on screen were created in the moment, driven by the trust between herself and Adams. The director would often offer vague cues, urging Deutsch to respond authentically to what the character was experiencing rather than sticking to scripted lines. This approach, though unorthodox, led to some of the most emotionally raw moments in the film, especially during Molly's moments of self-realization and confrontation with her past. The shoot itself was plagued with challenges. The film's central theme revolves around a dramatic emotional transformation, and the scenes needed to reflect Molly's shift from a woman obsessed with outward success to someone seeking inner peace. To make this transition feel real, the crew had to carefully design both physical and emotional environments for Deutsch to explore. For instance, when shooting at the retreat where Molly undergoes much of her re-education, the crew was forced to turn an existing location into a serene, calming space. Originally, the location was a rustic cabin nestled in the woods, perfect for the story but in dire need of extensive renovation to fit the vision. The crew spent days repurposing it, building small rooms and creating visual symmetry with the setting. The scene where Molly first feels a sense of freedom and self-expression was actually shot during an unexpected snowstorm. The weather created challenges with filming, but it also added a layer of authenticity to the moment. As Deutsch walked through the snow-covered landscape, her breath fogging up the cold air, the film's production designer, Vanessa Richards, saw it as an opportunity to let the elements work in tandem with the character's internal journey. It's as if nature itself was echoing Molly's transformation, Richards later remarked. The snowstorm turned what could have been a routine scene into something more poignant, representing the beginning of Molly's internal thaw. In another unexpected twist, a critical moment near the climax of the film, where Molly makes a decision that will alter her future, was filmed on a whim. The production team had initially scheduled the scene to be filmed on a set designed to look like an elegant office, but the night before, a last-minute location change forced the crew to shoot at an abandoned building downtown. This change, while stressful, ended up adding an organic, gritty element to the scene that perfectly matched Molly's internal turmoil. The rawness of the location, with its cracked walls and exposed pipes, gave the sequence a sense of urgency and vulnerability that was impossible to recreate in a more polished environment. Deutsch was thrilled with the shift, saying that she felt like her character was finally confronting the real, imperfect world, a metaphor for Molly's own break from the constraints of her former life. The decision to improvise with locations like this turned out to be one of the film's best creative choices. It wasn't just the locations or script improvisation that made the production interesting, but also the film's daring visual choices. One of the most notable examples is the use of mirrors throughout the film, a choice that was both symbolic and a bit of a logistical nightmare. Director Jordan Adams, inspired by the works of auteurs like Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock, wanted the mirrors to reflect Molly's fractured sense of self. However, getting the mirrors just right wasn't easy. The crew had to employ various techniques to avoid reflections of the crew members in the mirrors, sometimes using incredibly awkward angles to maintain the desired look. But this challenge only enhanced the symbolism. In one scene, when Molly finds herself reflecting on her choices in front of a mirror, the reflection is slightly off-center, hinting at her internal disarray. The crew spent hours trying to perfect these reflections, but in the end, it was the flaws in the execution, those moments when the mirror didn't quite reflect Molly as she wanted to be seen, that conveyed her struggle to embrace her true self. Then there's the unusual and somewhat controversial approach to the film's editing. The initial cut was several hours longer than the final version, and Adams faced pressure from producers to streamline the film, cutting certain scenes that focused on character development in favor of a faster-paced narrative. Some of the scenes removed were those that dug deeper into the personal histories of the supporting characters, particularly Ethan, played by John C. McGinley. McGinley's character, who serves as a mentor of sorts for Molly, had much more screen time initially, with several additional scenes exploring his backstory. There was even a subplot involving Ethan's own struggles with societal expectations and his battle with his estranged son. However, after much deliberation, Adams and the producers agreed that these scenes, while rich with character detail, ultimately detracted from the central theme of Molly's personal journey. Sometimes you have to let go of the pieces you love for the sake of the story, Adams reflected during an interview. It was a tough decision for McGinley, whose performance was lauded for its depth, but ultimately, these edits were essential in sharpening the focus of the film. McGinley himself was an advocate for the changes, believing that the heart of the story lay in Molly's transformation, and the film's pacing needed to reflect that singular emotional journey. However, not all decisions made by the creative team were as smooth or universally supported. One of the film's more controversial moments came during the initial test screenings. The scene in which Molly opens a package containing a letter from her estranged father was met with mixed reactions. Some viewers felt that the scene was too sentimental, while others felt that it was an emotional catharsis that enhanced the character's journey. The backlash led to heated debates among the creative team, but ultimately, it was decided to leave the scene in, albeit with some adjustments. The emotional weight of the moment, which might have seemed too heavy-handed in its original form, was softened through a subtle shift in the film's score, which had been initially composed with a more dramatic tone. By dialing back the intensity of the score, the scene became a more intimate and nuanced reflection of Molly's personal growth. In the final cut, the letter scene, though emotional, comes across as more a moment of reflection than an overt emotional release, allowing the viewer to experience Molly's sense of loss without forcing it. Another peculiar aspect of the production was the set design, particularly the apartment that Molly calls home. For much of the film, Molly's apartment is portrayed as pristine, minimalist, and meticulously curated. However, the design of the space was far from easy to achieve. In fact, the set designers had to go through over a dozen iterations to get it just right. The goal was to create a living space that screamed success, sleek, modern, and elegant, but one that also subtly hinted at Molly's emotional emptiness. Every piece of furniture, from the cold, angular couch to the framed artwork that adorned the walls, was carefully chosen to reflect Molly's need for control. However, it wasn't until the apartment's color palette was adjusted, substituting warmer tones for cooler hues, that the set began to convey the subtle shift in Molly's emotional journey. In the final scenes of the film, the space begins to feel less like a fortress of success and more like a blank canvas, symbolic of the new life Molly is creating for herself. This transformation in the apartment's aesthetic mirrors Molly's own metamorphosis and is a brilliant yet understated example of how set design can play a crucial role in a character's evolution. The film's final moments also reveal a fascinating detail about its production. The scene where Molly walks away from the mirror, symbolizing her rejection of her past self, was, in fact, one of the last scenes filmed. It wasn't initially part of the script, but as the production team neared the end of filming, Adams felt that the film needed a more definitive visual expression of Molly's transformation. Deutsch had become deeply invested in her character by this point, and the final shot was not only an artistic choice but also a reflection of the actress's own growth throughout the process. Adams later commented that this impromptu scene added a sense of closure and empowerment to the story that hadn't been present in the script. What started as a simple creative decision turned into one of the most impactful moments in the entire film. From location changes to last-minute script improvisations, The Re-Education of Molly Singer was a film that took many twists and turns in the making. Behind every creative decision was a team that worked tirelessly to bring out the emotional depth of the story, even if that meant navigating unexpected hurdles. The result is a film that feels both intimate and universal, a testament to the strength of its creative team. For the dedicated moviegoer, the behind-the-scenes stories of this film serve as a reminder of how every seemingly small detail contributes to a larger vision, a vision that's often shaped by the unpredictable nature of filmmaking itself. The Re-Education of Molly Singer is a film that captivates with its emotional depth, complex characters, and poignant moments of transformation. Each scene, from the quiet moments of reflection to the intense confrontations, serves as a piece of the larger narrative puzzle, contributing to the film's profound exploration of self-discovery, the rejection of superficiality, and the search for authenticity. Among the many scenes that populate this rich and layered story, there are certain moments that stand out not only for their emotional resonance but for their thematic significance, shaping the audience's understanding of the characters and the film's larger message. One of the first key moments that sets the tone for the film occurs early in the story, during a scene where Molly, played by Zoe Deutsch, confronts her reflection in a mirror. This moment is seemingly simple but carries so much weight, offering an early glimpse into the internal struggle that defines her journey. The mirror, which appears as a recurring motif throughout the film, acts as a silent observer of her growing discontent. In this first encounter with her reflection, Molly meticulously adjusts her hair, straightens her clothes, and checks her makeup, attempting to perfect her outward appearance for a world that demands perfection. At this stage of the film, her identity is defined by the image she projects, both in her professional life and on social media. She seems unable to separate her value from her appearance. This scene is impactful not only for its visual symbolism, but for how it sets up Molly's internal conflict. The focus on the mirror draws attention to her fractured self-image. She is not just looking at her reflection. She is scrutinizing herself through the lens of external validation. This is a critical moment that foreshadows the personal unraveling she will soon undergo. It's easy to overlook this early moment as a trivial act of vanity, but it establishes a powerful emotional depth to Molly's character. The scene subtly suggests that beneath the surface, Molly is searching for something deeper, but is trapped in a cycle of self-examination that leads nowhere. As the story progresses, we see more of Molly's unraveling in moments where she is forced to confront the emptiness of her carefully constructed life. One of the most impactful sequences comes when she is fired from her high-powered job. This pivotal moment shakes her to the core, not just because of the job loss itself, but because of what it represents: the loss of the very identity she has built for herself. In a climactic confrontation with her boss, Molly is told that her obsession with appearances, her social media presence, and her relentless pursuit of external validation are unsustainable. It's a harsh wake-up call for Molly, who has always used her career as a means of defining herself. This scene hits hard because it encapsulates the stark reality of how the world often prioritizes surface-level qualities over substance. For Molly, this is more than just a career setback. It is a confrontation with her own misplaced priorities. The emotional depth of this scene is amplified by Deutsch's raw performance. Her face, a mixture of shock, anger, and eventual sorrow, conveys the overwhelming weight of this realization. For Molly, the loss of her job is symbolic of the collapse of the carefully curated life she has been living. It's a turning point that forces her to take a hard look at what truly matters. It's also a pivotal moment for the audience, as they begin to understand the weight of the social pressures that have shaped Molly into the person she is. It's not just about losing a job. It's about losing the very identity she's spent years building. Following this crisis, the film takes a turn toward introspection as Molly seeks solace at a retreat. This transition marks another key moment in the film, one that contrasts sharply with the earlier parts of her life. The retreat serves as a space for healing, reflection, and ultimately transformation. But it's not an easy journey for Molly. The first time we see her at the retreat, she is visibly uncomfortable, both physically and emotionally. Surrounded by people who seem to be at peace with themselves, she is tense, guarded, and unwilling to open up. The other retreat attendees, like Ethan, John C. McGinley, are portrayed as more relaxed and self-assured, but Molly remains skeptical and cynical. The retreat represents a world of authenticity that is foreign to her, and she resists it with every fiber of her being. The emotional impact of these scenes lies in the gradual evolution of Molly's character. She doesn't instantly embrace the retreat's philosophy of self-acceptance and mindfulness. Instead, she struggles with her feelings of inadequacy and fear of failure. The process of letting go of her old identity is slow and painful. One of the most significant scenes in this part of the film occurs when Molly is asked to write a letter to her future self. Initially, this exercise feels pointless and contrived to her, something that she scoffs at and resists. But as the scene unfolds, it becomes clear that the letter is not just an act of self-reflection. It is a moment of vulnerability. For the first time in the film, Molly is encouraged to imagine a future where she has let go of the persona she has been clinging to. It's a deeply emotional moment because it represents her first real step toward change. The letter becomes a symbolic act of release, a turning point where Molly begins to let go of her fears and self-imposed limitations. In this sequence, the contrast between the harsh, sterile environments of her former life and the natural, peaceful surroundings of the retreat underscores the emotional shift that is happening inside her. The setting itself plays a pivotal role in communicating the theme of self-discovery. The camera work here is intimate, with close-up shots of Molly's face capturing the subtle shifts in her expression as she begins to open up. The visuals are bathed in warm, golden light, symbolizing the warmth of self-acceptance that Molly is starting to feel. One of the most emotionally charged moments of the film comes toward its climax, when Molly, now more attuned to her true desires, confronts her estranged father. The father-daughter relationship has been a recurring theme throughout the film, representing another layer of Molly's sense of self-worth and the need for external validation. Their reunion is fraught with tension, with Molly feeling both anger and sadness at the abandonment she experienced. In this confrontation, the film digs deep into Molly's vulnerability, as she finally expresses the hurt she's been carrying for years. This scene is powerful not only because of its emotional depth, but because it represents Molly's breakthrough moment. For the first time, she is not seeking approval from her father or from anyone else. She is standing up for herself, demanding the respect and validation she deserves, but doing so from a place of self-assurance rather than dependence. The moment marks a profound shift in Molly's character arc. She has finally let go of the need to define herself by the expectations of others. In the final shot of this confrontation, the camera lingers on Molly's face, capturing the subtle but significant change in her demeanor. Her posture is more relaxed, and her expression reflects a sense of peace that has eluded her for so long. These key moments in the re-education of Molly Singer work together to shape the overall narrative and emotional arc of the film. Each scene builds upon the last, deepening the audience's understanding of Molly's struggle and ultimate transformation. The film's emotional depth is enhanced by its careful pacing, allowing viewers to experience Molly's journey as she sheds her old identity and learns to embrace her true self. The emotional weight of these scenes, combined with the powerful performances from the cast, creates a deeply immersive experience that resonates with viewers. From the early scenes of self-scrutiny to the final moments of self-acceptance, the re-education of Molly Singer takes audiences on a journey of personal growth and emotional release. The key moments are not just turning points for the characters. They are moments that invite the audience to reflect on their own lives and the ways in which they may be holding on to outdated versions of themselves. Ultimately, the film's power lies in its ability to connect with its viewers on a deeply personal level, reminding us all of the importance of embracing who we truly are. The making of the re-education of Molly Singer is not just a testament to the creative vision behind it, but also to the technical innovations that helped breathe life into a story of self-discovery, identity, and transformation. The film blends intimate character exploration with expansive visual storytelling, relying on a combination of innovative techniques, artistic choices, and behind-the-scenes ingenuity to tell Molly's journey. From the framing of key emotional moments to the subtle yet powerful ways in which the technical aspects of the film reflect the internal struggles of the protagonist, the production of the re-education of Molly Singer stands as an exemplary feat of filmmaking. One of the first things that stands out about the film is its masterful use of visual metaphors. The cinematography plays a crucial role in conveying the complex emotional journey of Molly Singer, and every frame feels meticulously crafted to reflect her evolving state of mind. Cinematographer Lars Wieman, known for his work on other character-driven narratives, employed a style that alternates between stark, almost clinical shots and softer, more intimate frames as Molly's world shifts from one of control and isolation to openness and self-acceptance. In the early scenes, when Molly is living a life of relentless ambition and exterior perfection, the camera work is often rigid and structured. The framing tends to be tight and confined, symbolizing the way she has trapped herself within the rigid confines of societal expectations. The camera movements themselves feel controlled, much like the character she portrays, offering a sense of precision and detachment. But as the film progresses and Molly undergoes her internal re-education, the camera work becomes less restrained. Wieman employed handheld shots during Molly's more vulnerable moments, particularly in scenes where she begins to confront her inner fears and doubts. These moments are key in shifting the visual language of the film. The handheld camera allows the audience to feel closer to Molly, creating a sense of intimacy that mirrors her emotional evolution. The shift from structured framing to a more free-flowing, unsteady camera reflects the character's loosening grip on the need for control over her environment and herself. It's a subtle yet powerful technical achievement that mirrors the internal change taking place within the protagonist. In one of the most poignant scenes of transformation, Molly is shown walking alone through a vast, snow-covered landscape at the retreat. This moment is framed in such a way that the wide, open space around her speaks volumes about her emotional journey. The vastness of the shot reflects her isolation, but it also symbolizes the freedom she is beginning to embrace as she moves away from the confining, superficial world she once inhabited. The emptiness of the snow-filled landscape juxtaposed with her smallness in the frame is a beautiful way of showing her vulnerability, as well as the possibility of a fresh start. This shot stands as a visual metaphor for the internal thawing she experiences as she steps into the unknown and begins to rebuild herself. Lighting, too, plays a central role in the visual storytelling of the re-education of Molly Singer. The use of light in the film is not just functional, but highly symbolic, underscoring the emotional tone of each scene. Early on, the lighting is often cold and harsh, with sterile, white lighting dominating the spaces where Molly works and interacts with others. These bright, unforgiving lights reflect her emotional state. Her life feels artificial and rigid, defined by the pursuit of perfection. The harshness of these spaces, such as her office and upscale apartment, is a reflection of her emotional isolation. The lighting in these scenes casts long shadows, heightening the feeling of detachment and distance. As Molly begins her journey of self-reinvention, the lighting begins to shift. When she first arrives at the retreat, the change in lighting is subtle but significant. There is a noticeable warmth in the frames, with soft, golden hues filling the screen. The shift in the lighting not only serves the practical purpose of signaling a change in location, but it also emphasizes her transition from a life built on superficial success to one grounded in authenticity and inner peace. The softer lighting allows the audience to feel a sense of comfort and serenity alongside Molly, drawing us into her emotional evolution. The lighting reflects her newfound openness, making it clear that she is finally allowing herself to embrace vulnerability. Another striking aspect of the film's technical innovation is its use of sound design. The soundscape of the re-education of Molly Singer is intricate, with each sound choice carefully selected to enhance the emotional impact of the narrative. The film's sound design creates a rich auditory environment that mirrors the emotional shifts happening within the characters. Early on, the soundtrack features upbeat, electronic music that mirrors the fast-paced, high-stakes world Molly inhabits. The music is polished, with a sense of calculated precision, just like the world she's built for herself. The rhythm of the soundtrack is constant, matching the urgency of her lifestyle. However, as Molly moves further into her journey of re-education, the music becomes softer, more organic. The electronic beats are replaced by acoustic instruments, and the tempo slows. This shift in the score complements the slow unraveling of Molly's character, as she lets go of the need for constant validation and learns to be at peace with herself. The shift in the musical tone serves as a sonic representation of Molly's growth, and it's no coincidence that these changes in the score coincide with the pivotal moments of transformation in her journey. Sound design also plays a crucial role in the film's quieter, more introspective moments. The use of silence or near silence during critical scenes, such as when Molly writes her letter to her future self, creates a sense of intimacy and focus. The audience is drawn into Molly's internal world, and the absence of sound allows the emotions of the character to resonate more deeply. The gentle rustle of paper, the faint scratch of the pen against the page, and the soft exhale of breath are all that can be heard, emphasizing the vulnerability and authenticity of the moment. The minimalistic sound design in these scenes invites the viewer to experience Molly's emotional journey in a more personal, sensory way. But the re-education of Molly Singer is not just about the technical aspects of filmmaking. It's also a story of resilience and adaptation during the production process. The movie's budget constraints and tight shooting schedule were significant hurdles that could have derailed its vision, but the filmmakers, cast, and crew found ways to turn these challenges into creative opportunities. One particularly interesting aspect of the film's production was the decision to shoot much of it on location, rather than relying on constructed sets. While this approach can often be a logistical nightmare, it proved to be an incredibly effective choice, especially when shooting the scenes at the retreat. The location was a sprawling, secluded property that had the natural beauty and emotional atmosphere the filmmakers needed. However, the production team faced significant difficulties when it came to weather conditions. The film had been scheduled to shoot in late spring, but unexpected weather shifts created issues with accessibility, particularly in the remote locations where many of the retreat scenes were filmed. In one particularly intense moment during filming, a major snowstorm hit just as the crew was scheduled to shoot an emotionally charged scene in which Molly confronts the dissonance between her old and new selves. The storm caused several delays, forcing the team to work under less than ideal conditions. However, the crew turned this challenge into an opportunity, using the snowstorm to their advantage. The inclement weather added an additional layer of symbolism to the scene, representing Molly's internal storm and the emotional tumult she was experiencing. The rawness and unpredictability of the weather mirrored the emotional chaos that Molly felt inside, making the scene feel even more authentic. Another fascinating behind-the-scenes moment occurred during the filming of the key scene where Molly confronts her estranged father. The production had initially planned to shoot the scene in a brightly lit, elegant space, but due to time constraints and scheduling conflicts, the location was changed last minute to a darker, more cramped environment. This last-minute shift could have been disastrous, but the crew once again adapted quickly. The change in location ended up adding an unexpected layer of intimacy and tension to the confrontation. The cramped space intensified the emotional stakes, making the scene feel more claustrophobic and raw. The decision to shoot the scene in this new location became one of the film's most powerful visual and emotional moments. Ultimately, The Re-Education of Molly Singer is a film that showcases not only creative brilliance, but also the resilience and adaptability of its team. The way in which technical and creative innovations merged seamlessly with the narrative was key to bringing Molly's story to life. From the deliberate shifts in cinematography and lighting to the sound design that accompanied her transformation, every technical detail contributed to the larger themes of the film. The production challenges, too, became part of the story, transforming obstacles into opportunities for deeper emotional resonance. The result is a film that feels not only artistically and technically accomplished, but one that intimately connects with its audience, creating a deeply immersive experience that lingers long after the credits roll. The Re-Education of Molly Singer isn't just a story about one woman's personal journey. It's a poignant exploration of broader themes that resonate deeply in our modern, image-driven society. As the film unfurls, it invites viewers to peel back the layers of its narrative, revealing not only the personal transformation of the protagonist, but also a broader social commentary on self-worth, the danger of external validation, and the importance of authenticity. What initially seems like a story of a woman navigating career setbacks and relationships evolves into a profound meditation on how our culture's obsession with appearances and success can rob us of our true selves. The core of the film's message is a critique of society's fixation on superficial success. Success defined not by inner fulfillment, but by external achievements and appearances. This theme is woven throughout the entire narrative, beginning with Molly's life before her emotional breakdown. At the start of the film, she's depicted as a character whose worth is inextricably linked to her external success. She has it all, at least on the surface. A high-powered job, a glamorous apartment, and a social media presence that signals to the world her perfection. Yet, the more we see her in this pristine, curated environment, the clearer it becomes that this external success is an illusion, a mask she's worn for years, one that hides a deep sense of emptiness. The idea of living a life based on external validation is a societal issue that the film addresses with acute sensitivity. From the very first scenes, we're introduced to a world where validation is sought not through genuine connection but through likes, followers, and the opinion of others. Molly's life is centered around maintaining a perfect image, not just in real life but online. Her self-worth is intrinsically tied to how others perceive her, a sentiment reinforced through the social media-driven culture that increasingly governs our lives. The film takes a subtle jab at this modern epidemic, showing how toxic and unsustainable this dependence on external validation can be. Molly's struggle is essentially a battle between the version of herself that society wants her to be and the person she knows, deep down, she is meant to become. Her transformation begins when she starts to shed the carefully crafted identity that no longer serves her, a process that mirrors the emotional struggle many face in the pursuit of authenticity in a world obsessed with perfection. The film delicately critiques the idea that external success is the key to happiness, urging viewers to question the societal norms that define success and self-worth. In doing so, it forces us to confront the very real pressures we face to present a flawless, curated life, a trend that's only been amplified in the age of social media. But the theme of external validation is just one of the film's many layers. As Molly's journey unfolds, we begin to see the deep-rooted symbolism embedded within the narrative, adding complexity to her transformation. One of the most important and recurring symbols in The Re-Education of Molly Singer is the mirror. From the very first scenes of the film, mirrors serve as a metaphor for self-perception and the struggle for authenticity. Early on, when Molly meticulously checks her appearance in every reflective surface she encounters, the mirror becomes a physical manifestation of her obsession with outward appearance. She doesn't see herself in the mirror as she truly is but rather as the world sees her, a reflection that's been carefully crafted to meet the expectations of others. This obsession with mirrors, with her own reflection, suggests that Molly is trapped in a cycle of self-examination, continually measuring her worth against an idealized image of herself. The mirror's symbolism is particularly poignant during the scene where Molly, at the retreat, is finally able to look at herself without judgment. This pivotal moment in the film represents her breaking free from the constraints of her curated image, and the symbolic significance of the mirror comes full circle. When Molly stands before the mirror, her face is softer, more vulnerable. She is no longer obsessed with meeting the standards that society and her job have set for her. The mirror, once a tool for validation, becomes a moment of self-acceptance, marking a significant turning point in her journey. Beyond the mirror, the natural world itself is imbued with symbolism. The retreat, where much of Molly's personal growth unfolds, is set in an isolated, snow-covered landscape that represents both the external and internal journey she undergoes. The cold, vast expanse of the wilderness serves as a metaphor for Molly's initial emotional state, distant, isolated, and cut off from anything real. But the retreat also symbolizes a space for growth, for self-reflection, and ultimately for healing. As Molly starts to embrace this space and, symbolically, her own vulnerability, the snowstorm that initially serves as an obstacle becomes a moment of transformation. The storm, which could be seen as an external force, mirrors the emotional storm Molly is experiencing. The raw, unfiltered nature of the landscape reflects the purity of the process she's going through, untainted by the expectations of her old life. The juxtaposition of the retreat's peaceful, natural environment with the manic, structured world Molly leaves behind is a subtle yet powerful statement about the importance of finding harmony within oneself. The film suggests that in order to achieve true peace and fulfillment, we must be willing to disconnect from the noise of modern life and return to the basics, return to nature, return to ourselves. In this sense, the retreat becomes a sanctuary, a space where Molly can rediscover who she is without the burden of societal expectations. While the symbolism of the mirror and nature serves to highlight the personal and emotional dimensions of Molly's journey, the social commentary of the re-education of Molly Singer reaches far beyond the individual experience. One of the film's most potent themes is its critique of the hyper-competitive, image-obsessed society in which we live. The film doesn't shy away from calling out the toxic nature of industries, particularly those centered around media, entertainment, and social influence. The corporate world, as depicted in the early scenes, is an environment that values appearances over substance, where everyone is constantly jockeying for power and status, and where personal worth is tied to professional success. Molly's role in this world is to curate a perfect image, a task that, while seemingly glamorous, ultimately proves to be exhausting and unfulfilling. But beyond corporate culture, the film also speaks to the societal pressure to present a picture-perfect life. In the era of Instagram, influencers, and curated online personas, the movie highlights the real consequences of living a life defined by others' expectations. This aspect of the film resonates deeply in a cultural moment when social media has become an integral part of our identity. Molly's character becomes a symbol for the many people who struggle to balance their online persona with their true self. The movie challenges the viewer to reconsider the value of authenticity in a world that seems to reward curated perfection. This theme of authenticity versus artificiality is not just limited to Molly's character. It's reflected in the relationships around her, as well. Early on, the film shows how Molly's interactions with her colleagues and even her friends are superficial. There's a sense of performance in each of these interactions, as though everyone is playing a part to maintain the facade of success. Even Molly's relationship with her father, which is strained and distant, is rooted in a lack of authenticity. They communicate through layers of misunderstanding and unmet expectations, further underscoring the film's commentary on how society's focus on appearances can lead to emotional disconnection. However, as Molly begins to embrace authenticity, she starts to form more meaningful connections. Her relationship with Ethan, the retreat's facilitator, is one of the most telling examples of this. At first, their interactions are hesitant and guarded, with both characters putting up emotional walls. But as they begin to shed their own layers of pretense, their connection grows. Ethan himself, though initially presented as an idealized healer, also has his own struggles with self-worth and identity. His journey, like Molly's, is about confronting the truth of who he is without relying on external validation. Their evolving relationship becomes a mirror of the personal growth both characters undergo. At its heart, the re-education of Molly Singer is about breaking free from the shackles of societal expectations and learning to live an authentic life. The film's themes of self-discovery and authenticity are deeply intertwined with its social commentary on the dangers of living a life based on external validation. Through the lens of Molly's transformation, the film invites the audience to reflect on their own lives, to question how much of their self-worth is tied to the opinions of others, and to consider the value of embracing vulnerability and imperfection. The film's use of symbolism and its critique of a superficial, image-driven society work in tandem to make a powerful statement about the importance of authenticity and self-acceptance. It challenges us to reevaluate our own definitions of success, urging us to look beyond the polished exterior of a curated life and to find meaning in the messy, imperfect journey of becoming who we truly are. In the re-education of Molly Singer, the visual language plays a pivotal role in bringing the film's thematic elements to life, enhancing the emotional weight of each moment while pushing the narrative forward. The cinematography, editing, and sound design work in harmony, weaving together to create an experience that feels visceral and intimate. From the carefully constructed shots to the deliberate use of lighting and sound, every technical choice reinforces the emotional core of the story. The director, with an astute understanding of visual storytelling, uses these tools to convey Molly's inner transformation in a way that transcends mere dialogue or plot, allowing the audience to feel the shifts in her character on a deeper, more sensory level. The film begins in a world that is rigid, clean, and perfectly structured, reflective of Molly's life before she embarks on her emotional journey. The cinematography by Lars Weimann is deliberate and meticulous, capturing the sterile, corporate environment where Molly works and lives. The framing is often symmetrical, with sharp, angular compositions that mirror the way Molly controls every aspect of her life. The camera moves with precision, often using wide-angle shots to emphasize the sterile, impersonal spaces she occupies. Whether it's the sleek glass and chrome interiors of her office or the meticulously ordered luxury apartment, the world around her feels impassive, much like the emotional walls Molly has built to protect herself. However, as the film progresses and Molly begins her journey of personal growth, the lighting softens. In the scenes set at the retreat, natural light floods the screen. The gentle glow of the sun filtering through trees or reflecting off the snow creates an inviting, warm atmosphere that contrasts sharply with the cold, artificial lighting of her old life. The softness of the lighting mirrors Molly's emotional softening and growing willingness to be open, to expose her vulnerabilities. It's a subtle but powerful visual cue that marks her progression from the tightly wounded, emotionally protected person she once was to someone who is beginning to embrace her true self. The sound design and music of the re-education of Molly Singer are just as essential to its storytelling as the visual techniques. From the very beginning, the soundscape of the film is carefully crafted to reflect the emotional tone of each scene. The sound design is rich and layered, with the music and ambient sounds often serving as an extension of the character's inner emotional state. Early in the film, the score is marked by sharp, electronic beats that reflect the rigid, fast-paced life Molly leads. The music feels almost mechanical, mirroring her dependence on perfection and her relentless pursuit of external validation. As Molly's journey progresses, the music shifts, gradually becoming softer and more organic. The sharp, electronic sounds are replaced by acoustic instruments, with a focus on piano and strings. The change in the music mirrors her internal shift, signaling her gradual release of the need for external success and the emergence of her authentic self. The music in these scenes is delicate and introspective, giving space for the character's emotions to breathe and evolve. It's a musical language that invites the audience to follow Molly's emotional transformation as she learns to embrace vulnerability and imperfection. Sound design also plays a significant role in moments of silence. During some of Molly's more introspective scenes, the film embraces quietness, allowing the stillness to speak for itself. One of the most impactful moments in the film occurs during a scene where Molly sits alone in the retreat's common area, reflecting on her journey. There is no dialogue, no music, just the sound of her breathing and the soft ambient noise of the retreat's natural environment. The sound of wind in the trees or the soft crackling of a fire adds to the feeling of peace and self-reflection. The decision to use minimal sound in this moment is not only a technical choice but an emotional one, allowing the audience to be fully immersed in Molly's internal world. In terms of editing, the film adopts a methodical pacing that mirrors Molly's emotional progression. Early on, the editing is fast-paced, with quick cuts and jumpy transitions that reflect the rush of her high-powered career and her overwhelming life in the city. There is a sense of urgency in the way the shots are arranged, mirroring the chaos that Molly feels internally. The jump cuts and fragmented sequences suggest a life that is in constant motion, but also disconnected and fragmented. In contrast, the editing becomes slower and more contemplative as Molly begins her journey at the retreat. Longer, unbroken takes allow for more time to reflect on her emotional state, and the cuts are gentler, giving the viewer space to absorb the full emotional weight of each scene. One of the most striking moments in terms of editing occurs during a scene where Molly confronts her father for the first time in years. The sequence alternates between shots of Molly, her father, and the retreat's serene landscape, creating a visual contrast between the emotional turmoil of the confrontation and the peace of the natural world. The editing rhythm in this scene mirrors the emotional push and pull between Molly's past and present. The tension between the two worlds is reflected in the pacing. Quick, jarring cuts between the confrontation and the peaceful natural world underscore the emotional discord within Molly herself. This contrast in editing heightens the emotional stakes, pushing the audience to feel the weight of Molly's journey. Finally, the director's overall vision is one that blends style with substance, using visual and auditory techniques to enhance the narrative rather than overshadow it. The director's ability to integrate cinematography, lighting, sound design, and editing into a seamless whole is what makes the re-education of Molly Singer such an immersive cinematic experience. Every technical choice serves the larger narrative, reinforcing the emotional truths of the story while allowing the audience to connect deeply with Molly's journey. In conclusion, the re-education of Molly Singer is a stunning example of how visual storytelling can elevate a film beyond its script. The careful attention to cinematography, lighting, sound design, and editing not only enhances the thematic elements of the film but also brings the emotional depth of the characters to life. The seamless integration of these technical elements into the narrative allows the film to transcend traditional storytelling, making it a rich, layered experience that resonates long after the credits roll. It's a testament to the power of cinema as an art form, where every detail, no matter how small, contributes to the larger emotional arc of the story. In the re-education of Molly Singer, the power of cast chemistry cannot be overstated. From the very first scene to the final moments of the film, the dynamic interactions between the characters, primarily Molly, played by Emily Allen Lind, and the supporting cast, create a compelling emotional landscape that enriches the narrative. The film's success is largely owed to the depth and authenticity that the actors bring to their roles, elevating the story beyond its plot and imbuing it with a sense of realism that resonates with audiences. Emily Allen Lind's portrayal of Molly is one of the defining strengths of the film. Her ability to embody a character caught in a constant state of emotional conflict is remarkable. Molly's journey is one of deep self-discovery, and Lind brings a raw vulnerability to the role that makes it impossible to look away. From the beginning, the audience can see the tension in Molly's eyes, a woman striving for a perfect life, yet drowning in her own expectations. Lind's performance, characterized by subtle facial expressions and nuanced body language, mirrors Molly's inner turmoil and gradual transformation. The moments when Molly confronts her own weaknesses, whether in silence or in conversation, are where Lind's acting truly shines. Her chemistry with other characters, particularly Ethan, played by Alexander Zekulin, builds the emotional depth that anchors the film. Ethan, the retreat facilitator and the catalyst for much of Molly's change, is portrayed with equal care by Alexander Zekulin. The relationship between Molly and Ethan is integral to the narrative, and their on-screen chemistry creates a palpable tension that evolves as the story progresses. At first, their interactions are cool and professional, a reflection of Molly's guarded nature. Ethan's own struggle with the retreat's philosophy is subtly hinted at, making him a perfect foil to Molly's journey. Zekulin brings a quiet, empathetic energy to his character, which contrasts nicely with Molly's more chaotic energy. As the film unfolds, Ethan's gradual opening up to Molly parallels her own transformation. His restrained yet compassionate performance allows the audience to see Ethan as not just a mentor but a fellow traveler on a path of healing. Their scenes together are filled with a quiet intensity, an unspoken understanding that deepens with each passing moment. The chemistry between Lind and Zekulin allows for the slow-burning relationship between their characters to feel authentic. Their exchanges, particularly the moments of vulnerability shared in the stillness of the retreat, are brimming with unspoken words. The absence of grand gestures or melodramatic confessions heightens the realism of their connection. It's through their shared silence, the way they simply exist in the same space, that the bond between them grows. It's not just romantic tension that fuels their connection, but also the sense of two people coming to terms with their own emotional baggage, unearthing vulnerabilities that were once buried. Supporting characters also play a crucial role in the emotional fabric of the re-education of Molly Singer. Molly's relationship with her father, played by John C. Reilly, is one of the film's most emotionally complex subplots. Riley's portrayal of a distant, emotionally unavailable father is simultaneously frustrating and sympathetic. The father-daughter dynamic between Molly and her father is at the heart of the movie's exploration of family, expectation, and emotional disconnect. Riley imbues the character with a level of nuance that makes his moments of tenderness toward Molly more powerful. There's a deeply human quality to Riley's performance that adds complexity to the character, even when he's at his most aloof. His interactions with Lind are charged with unspoken history, a blend of regret, resentment, and longing that bubbles just beneath the surface. Their scenes together, particularly in the moments where they attempt to reconcile, are heartbreakingly real, filled with awkward pauses and hesitant gestures that speak volumes without saying a word. While the emotional dynamics of the father-daughter relationship are key to the story, the re-education of Molly Singer also relies heavily on the retreat's other residents and facilitators to highlight the theme of transformation. These supporting characters, while not as central to the narrative, add layers to the story's exploration of vulnerability and self-acceptance. Each one represents a different facet of emotional healing, from the skeptical outsider to the overzealous enthusiast, and their interactions with Molly provide insight into her journey. The retreat setting itself becomes a microcosm of various emotional states: hope, despair, fear, and growth, each of which is brought to life through the ensemble cast. The actors who portray these characters contribute to the sense of a real, functioning space where emotional work is being done, making the retreat setting feel lived in and authentic. Behind the scenes, the chemistry between the cast was just as integral to the film's success. Director Sophie Goodhart, known for her ability to elicit rich, character-driven performances, created a space on set where actors were encouraged to collaborate and explore their characters in depth. According to behind-the-scenes reports, Goodhart was highly involved in shaping the relationships between the actors, ensuring that the emotional beats of the film felt earned rather than scripted. She worked closely with Lind, Zekulin, and Riley to build trust among the cast, allowing the actors to find organic moments within their scenes. This focus on collaboration was key in making the relationships feel believable, as the actors were able to delve into their characters' emotions in a way that felt real and unforced. There were moments during production where improvisation played a significant role in shaping the characters and their relationships. For example, during one pivotal scene between Molly and Ethan, Lind and Zekulin improvised several lines of dialogue, allowing their characters to react more spontaneously to the emotional tension in the scene. Goodhart encouraged this kind of creative freedom, believing it would help bring the characters to life in a way that felt authentic. The resulting scenes are filled with emotional truth, with the rawness of the improvisation adding a layer of vulnerability to the characters.